super excited about our topic today. I don't know how many people are aware, but there are a lot of big changes coming for people who are buying houses with cash or private money or hard money. So we have a special guest on today, Kim Kramer. She is with True Title and she is super knowledgeable about all of the changes that are happening with FinCEN and what they mean for us as investors. So today she is going to just be taking questions and seeing how she can best help and support us as we go through these changes. Kim is also around to answer questions after this call. So as you guys think of things, definitely lean on your title company. I highly encourage you guys to close with True Title if you aren't already. And then Kim is just an awesome built-in resource as well as all of their closers there and processors who are, I'm sure, trained on all of the changes that are coming. So Kim, do you just want to first tell everyone a little bit about yourself and then give like a really big overview on what the FinCEN changes are, why they're happening, and what it means to real estate investors?
Absolutely. Well, thank you for inviting me and thank you for the wonderful accolades that you gave. It's so nice. So, yes, my name is Kim Kramer. I'm the Vice President of Escrow Operations for True Title Company. I work very closely with Lori and Tammy over the years, and Suzanne and Rachel, just with our O'Fallon team and closing a number of investor deals. So I'm not on the day to day, but definitely get to help support our wonderful team there and be a resource for our team when questions come up regarding closing deals and how to get them across the table. So I really enjoy the investor side of the business. I think it's fun. Working with investors is always a good time. So I have glad to be here today to be part of this and answer questions. And hopefully you guys will throw some questions at me that maybe are new that I can go back and find answers if I don't have it, but then will be great to get the answers and educate our team. So I'll just start with what is FinCEN and what's the FinCEN real estate report and why it's happening and where we're going. So the FinCEN real estate report is a new federal filing requirement designed to combat money laundering through certain residential real estate transactions. So starting March 1st, 2026, any transaction that triggers FinCEN reporting, the title companies will have to report. And this is across the board. All title companies posing these transactions will be required to report the same information. So this isn't like it's something True Title's going to do and the other ABC title companies not. Everyone is going to be required to report if the property, if this transaction qualifies or triggers a FinCEN report. So starting March 1st, 2026, specific real estate professionals involved in closings and settlements will need to submit the reports to the Financial Crime Enforcement Network. So that does not mean real estate agents or investors, but it is, title companies, attorneys, if they're processing those. So those are the individuals. So the title company is required to do that, but it's good that the investors and real estate agents know what is going to be reported and why. So these reports focus on non-finance property transfers involving legal entities or trust. Okay, so it's not individuals. So buyers that are buying properties that are a legal entity or trust, LLCs, trust corporations, those are considered high risk for financial crimes. Okay, so that is why the information that's being collected in these files, it's not going to be made public, okay, but it will be used by law enforcement and national security agencies to detect, illicit, illegal financial activities. So that's why it's here. What it's being done, let's go to what types of real estate transfers qualify for this or trigger it. So the FinCEN rule applies to residential real estate transfers that meet all the following conditions, okay? The property is located in the United States. and is considered residential real estate. So this includes properties with 1 to 4 residential units and residentially zoned land. Does anybody have any questions about that before I move to the next? Okay,
And just to clarify, so this doesn't apply to people who are buying properties in their personal name.
correct. Does not
Okay.
apply to them.
Okay.
Only entities or trusts.
Got it.
Okay.
Does it make a difference if I buy the property under my name and then transfer?
Yes, it does. So we do have to report that, and that's a good question, and a lot of people have asked that. But if you put it in your name and then a week later want to transfer the deed, that's considered it, and it's reportable.
What if I transfer it after 1 year?
Still
Still
report.
reportable.
Still reportable. Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. The transfer is non-financed, meaning it does not involve a loan from a bank or lender, subject to anti-money laundering laws. Okay. Um, You may also see this referred to as a cash transaction. So, cash transaction, hard money lending, gift from Aunt Susie, gift from mom and dad, anything that is non-finance where the bank or the person providing the money is not subject to the anti-money laundering laws, it's reportable. Any
Which I feel like, Kim, to clarify for people, that's pretty much banks. If it's institutional bank, like think Bank of America, Chase, First State Bank, St. Charles, those are
correct,
exempt. But then
correct.
if you're using any kind of private money, hard money, those all qualify.
Correct. And there's a number of credit unions that
Oh,
also are not subject to the anti-money laundering law. So and I'll tell you a little bit more about that, but how we're verifying that and finding that information. And there's some great resources and tools in the platform that we will be using with our clients to gather the information and help them explain. And a platform that will also be reporting this for us to FinCEN. We have some resources and tools that you all can even go to the website that we'll be using and put in that bank or credit union, and it will let you know if they are, registered and subject to the AML or if they're not. So that's great too when we're looking at contracts or looking to see if we do, and they tell you, oh yeah, I'm going through ABC Credit Union. You can quickly see if they are going to be exempt or not due to that. Okay, the last is the new owner is a legal entity such as a corporation or limited liability company or a trust. Okay. So one key thing on that, the buyer triggers this. Okay. So if the buyer is an LLC and they are getting the money from a non-financed, okay, they're paying for it in cash. This does trigger on the seller side that we have to report their information as well. Okay. Now, if the buyer is an individual, they're exempt, right? If the seller's an LLC, doesn't matter. The buyer triggers this only if they are an entity or a trust. Anybody have any questions on that? No. So for
I got a,
investors, this is
oh,
something. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry,
Brad.
I got a quick question. You said if the buyer is an LLC and buying in cash, it triggers something from what exactly does it trigger from the seller? What does the seller have to disclose?
Great question. So the seller has to disclose. I want to make sure this. So the seller will have to disclose the same type of information on a 1099. So it will be their taxpayer ID or their social security number, their full name and address.
So it's pretty
So
much just like a W-9 that you're
yeah, or the
collecting.
1099 that we do. But if they are an LLC, and there's times in trust, we're not collecting their name and their full name. We're getting their trust name. We will have to get their name, the individual's name, and individuals on the trust name, anyone on there, in addition to their address, and it cannot be a PO box. So that is something that, when we're working with these sellers, and I know sometimes in the investor world, those sellers, it's a challenge, getting more information from them, wanting them to sell, wanting to do that. And when you're in competition, working with other investors to try to get that contract sign is just something good to know that that is something that may be required if they're comfortable with giving that information.
I do have a
And
question.
that, oh
Sure.
yeah.
Um, so does this has anything to do with like the entities that will basically are kind of forced to not buy single families or investment properties? Does that have something to do with when Trump signed that thing?
It has to do with anti-money laundering, and I don't believe that it has to do with what you're referring to. This is something that the FinCEN has been doing since 2016. They had general target areas throughout the United States where there were like Florida, Colorado, where they have been reporting on this since then. And a significant amount of the properties that were part of those targeted areas were it was 44% of those areas were a suspicious activity report on those. So it's really to combat money laundering that finances drugs, human trafficking, terrorism, and those things. That's more what this is about.
Can I kind of speak on that for a second?
Sure.
So faster funds lending, we actually get audited for anti-money laundering, and we do an audit every year to make sure because real estate is an easy way to clean money. So you have terrorist organizations and drug lords and stuff like that, and they can buy properties and it's how they clean it. So this is basically coming in to make sure that all of that is happening in good standing. So it feels a little strange that people are doing this from a real estate investor perspective if you haven't been involved with FinCEN and bank security stuff. But a lot of banking institutions have already been looking at this, and this is kind of a way to help look at it from an individual property perspective that hasn't been previously monitored, if that makes sense.
Exactly. Perfect.
Okay, I'm curious, is this like a last year we were told by FinCEN to register all our LLCs and things like that? It has something to do with that same kind of direction?
You got it. So that
Okay.
making it has to be registered. We, are going to have to not only we're asking for operating agreements, we're asking for all those things at closing that has
Ah,
that information have to be registered. In addition, now we have to have the beneficial owner information, which I'm going to go through that here in a minute and explain who that applies to and what that information is. But yes, the first step of this was getting requiring all of those to be registered.
yeah. I've already done mine, right? Without knowing that they didn't require it.
Yeah.
But that's okay.
Yes.
And that brings up a good question. Does that benefit people if they did already file their LLCs, even though that then went away and was no longer a requirement? Does that make a difference for anyone at all or
I mean,
not?
it's giving the information that we need in Missouri to close and that we're
Okay.
doing, but as far as there's more information being required from
Okay.
the the BOIs on those. So yes and no.
And
The-
then as you were talking, it made me think about, you know, we, a lot of wholesalers just assign deals to people. So a lot of the loans we're lending on are simply assignments. Does this affect wholesalers who are assigning? Obviously, if they double close, I understand they would have to report. But if it's
Correct.
just an assignment, this would help the wholesaler. They wouldn't need to share their knowledge, but it would still
Correct.
force the seller to
Right.
disclose.
So if it's assigned to a buyer that's an LLC or trust and it's a cat non-financed, it's reportable, but the middle person, the investor wholesaler, they do not have to.
As long as it's not a double close. I would assume if
Correct.
it's a double close,
If
the
it's a
wholesaler
double
would
close and
have
it's
to.
closing, yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
If I may
So,
just
and
ask a dumb question, sorry about this.
no
Uh,
questions are done.
is this a federal law or is just state-wise?
This is federal. This is
Mm,
across the
okay.
board in the United States.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay. So what is a beneficial owner, right? Who qualifies as a beneficial owner in this? What does that mean? So beneficial owner of a transferee entity is someone who either exercises substantial control over the entity or owns and controls at least 25% of the ownership interest in the entity. Okay. So that means also, how is beneficial ownership information certified? Means the transferee or their authorized representative must provide written certification stating that the beneficial ownership information is accurate to their best knowledge. So it's not only do we need the BOI for the LLC, if someone's a signer for that, we also are going to have their information. And we're going to have to certify at closing, they're going to have to certify a document that that information is correct. Okay. So how are we going to gather this information, right? How are we going to do that? So we have what we're using is called FinCEN Real Estate Report, and it is a platform. They have already been working with companies that were in those targeted areas, collecting the information and reporting it. So we looked at all different types of platforms to see which would be the best and the most secure and the most user-friendly. Because, one of those things we already, when TRID came out, remember how hard that was to get all that information. We're still going to get seller information, buyer information. Well, this is another step to getting to the closing table. Because here's the key to this. It's very important. If we do not have this information, it will not close. It cannot close. So we wanted to use the most, robust and user-friendly, but also secure program that we could find out there to make sure that we can get the information quickly to get to close and that it's reported accurately. Because there are penalties if it is not reported, and there are fines to title companies if it's not. So that is why it has to be closed, because you can't go back and get the information after closing. So what will happen is once we see that it is a cash purchase or a non-finance purchase, we will immediately send a link to clients, and it takes anywhere from 1 to 5 minutes to complete the information. We will not see on our end all of the private information, like the social security numbers and things. Those will be in that system, and those will be secure, and those will go directly to FinCEN in the reporting. So it will not be held in our platform, in our files, in our software. Someone has their hand raised. Go ahead.
Just curious, I thought about something. If I finance, say, if I have an entity which is not going through the bank, but to buy from my own money. For example, say I have a corporation, the corporation is lending me the money to buy this and not involve any financial institution. Is this also, do I still have to report this as
Yes,
well?
sir. Mhm.
Okay.
And
So
we
no
would
matter
have to
what you
get
have done.
that, we'd have to get the information from where that's coming from and the bank account information for where it comes from.
Thank you.
So if you have that, we'll do that. But if someone's aunt is giving them money, okay, we will also have to get that aunt's information and the bank account information of where that money's coming from. So that brings up two key things that sometimes happen that I see with investor deals. Sometimes we're going to have a cash, and then all of a sudden, 2 days later, we find out that we're going to have it by maybe this hard money lender or this investor that's going to. And so that gives us a short time period to get all the information we need on to be able to close for the BOI on that entity. One thing that we can do with this robust system that we have is we can save information from clients and entities that we work with all the time, which was key when we were looking at this. And all that will have to be done is certified that that information is correct and nothing has changed, so that we don't have to keep doing this each time for our routine investor clients. So that is positive. Now, annually, it'll have to be updated or if something changes, but that is something that this program will allow, which is great. It gets key to know that sometimes we do changes in the same day. So, it's just good for everyone to know if you're trying to get this deal across the table, if it's going to be from a non-financed um, entity, we're going to have to get all that information. But it's quick. They get on their phone, they answer it. One of the things that I thought was key about this platform that we're using, which is what a good majority of title companies will be using, there are no blocks for the security. They can do it from their phone. They can do it from work. They can, log in and quickly do it. And there is someone that will immediately call them if they need help, or that will jump in as they're filling it out and help them and support, so that they don't go in and try to fill it out and then they don't have an answer or question and they have to go back. So again, the system will be very robust and it'll be quick for them to complete.
And I had a question from someone on Facebook. They asked, it goes right in line with what you were saying. So let's say the seller, some of our sellers are older and they have issues using technology. Is this something they could fill out at closing, or is this something that's maybe like a hard form a wholesaler could bring with them to have a seller fill out when they sign the contract? Or could they do it over the phone? Like, what about people who are technologically challenged?
Yes, so we have that support where they could help them over the phone
Okay.
complete it. We would like to have that done prior, obviously, so it can be reviewed by underwriting that this is completed. Again, we won't be looking at all that information, but there's always a workaround that if we need that information, we're going to work with clients to get it. And
Okay.
absolutely, there are going to be situations where folks aren't going to be able to navigate the systems, and a lot don't even have emails or use smartphones. So yes, we will have a process. Great question.
And Kim, just to clarify, this is the process for True Title. It sounds like you have a really smooth process that you're putting in place for investors, but this is not true for all title companies in the St. Louis area because each title company is dependent on which software they select. Is that correct?
That's correct. Now, I
Okay.
will tell you that a number of the title companies in the area that we partner with all the time, because we are going
Yep.
to do a lot of splits. So
Yep.
this is going to be key to working together to get
Oh,
information and
yeah.
contacting each other's clients. From my understanding, a number of them are utilizing this platform or one that's set up by the underwriters that they work with. So, I do believe that, most all are going to have some type of technology that they're using that's similar to this. Um, but I am excited about this because I think it's going to be a great platform to use. But going back to that on splits, we're working together in the title community to talk about how that's going to work. Because if we have the buyer side and the other title company has a seller side and our buyer triggers FinCEN, we are going to be required to have that information from the seller to get it closed.
Okay.
So how that will work out, we will have to reach out to their client to get that through this platform.
And then Alyssa asked, so let's say they have a wholesaler's assigning a contract, they have a buyer backs out and they now have to have a new buyer. Does the seller have to change any or update any of their reporting, or it really doesn't affect the seller because the seller's information hasn't changed?
That is
Is that
correct. So the
correct?
seller will not have to update anything, but the new buyer, if they
Yeah.
trigger it, they will.
And then Pat asked, is there going to be an added cost on settlement statements that investors can expect for this?
Yes, so there will be an added cost to the buyer. It will
Okay.
be the buyer's cost. The seller will not have a charge on that. The cost at this time is still being determined. So that's something that we are looking at to see what appropriate charges. And one of the things that's good to talk about is each one of these, from gathering the information to reporting it to making sure compliant, is known to be about 2.5 hours per transaction for the title company.
Wow.
So when you think about that, looking at that, so there will be a charge, but we're working to keep that charge as low as possible, but also to make sure we're covering the costs that it will incur for our business.
And then as far as timeline, so let's say, you have a house under contract, assuming the seller does their job of filling out their paperwork and so does the buyer. What kind of delays does this look like? Like as a lender, I see closings that, like I have a deal that got brought to me today that closes on Friday. Can that still occur if you already have the buyer's information and the lender's information and the seller is cooperative and has that ready, or should
Absolutely. That's what we
okay.
need to um to close. One of the things when the information's put in, if there's anything that shows that could possibly be exempt when they're doing that, or something that flags through the platform, they will immediately reach out to that client and say, hey, this tax ID doesn't look correct, or maybe was it a typo? So we'll get that quickly. As long as we have that information and it has been completed, we can close. Our job after as reporting is to do that within 30 days after the closing. So it will not hold up. Nothing in the timeline will hold up as long as we have the information required.
That's perfect. That's great news.
One other
What
question
I,
I think Alyssa asked where if you purchase multiple properties in one calendar year, do you have to pay every time or fill up this document every property?
So every property has to be certified on, and every property we have to go through and report it every transfer. So do you necessarily have to complete this stuff every time? No, but will there be a charge for it? Yes, because we have to report it. And so we have to do all the things on the back end and to make sure it's done. So
so it sounds like you have a good system to keep our experience fairly smooth as repeat investors, but on your end, you still have to do a bunch of back end government compliance stuff, which is probably not very fun.
correct. Thank you. I do want to say that there are some exemptions that exist that, to this ruling. So one of the things that is great is when we get a contract in, okay, and we see that it is, a non-financed and it's an entity and it's a residential property. There are a few things that we'll be looking at to see if it is exempt or not. Some of that exemptions exist are granting, transferring, or revoking an easement. Okay. Transfer due to death. So will, trust, or law. Transfer related to divorce or marriage dissolution. Transfer to a regulated entity like a bank or public company. Transfer to a bankruptcy estate, or court supervised transfer. So those are those are transfers that would be exempt. So it's something that we would be looking at also to make sure that none of those qualify before requiring the information to report.
It sounds like those are all exemptions because they're already being observed by a
Right.
federal regulatory body.
You got it.
That makes sense. Fabian, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I think she started to answer my question, which is how comprehensive is the information that's going to be required from investors? Like, can you give us some additional examples as far as what's being asked?
Yeah. So what you can expect is on what you will be asked if it's an entity, so an LLC.
Correct.
The legal name, okay, the individuals of that, all the members of that entity. So we'll need their legal name, their address, can't be a PO box, the jurisdiction and where they live, and then your EIN or social security number if it's an individual. So that's individuals with 25% or more ownership, and that's individuals with substantial control, so major decision authority. And if another company owns any part, okay, identify the real people behind it. So we will have to have all of that information on each of those individuals. If it's a
And
trust, anyone have any questions on that before I move to a trust?
I just kind of want to clarify what you're saying. If you have an LLC that's just owned by individuals, it's super easy. You're just disclosing all of those. If you have an LLC owned by an LLC owned by another LLC,
Mhm.
you have to disclose each of those steps. Is that correct?
That is
Because they
correct.
want to
Thank
get
you.
down to who truly owns, that individuals who truly own all of those. So the more complicated your entity structure is, the more you're going to have to fill out. The less complicated your entity structure is, it should be fairly simple.
You got it. Right. So trust, the trust name, the date it was executed, revocable or not. Okay. Um, all trustees, grantors who can revoke or withdraw assets, beneficiaries who can demand money or withdraw substantially all assets. If a trustee is a company, identify the real people behind it. So along the same lines of what of your explanation there on the LC, one of the things that's interesting on the trust is I had someone say, if it's my 5-year-old is listed on the trust, will their information have to be reported? Yes. So anybody on the trust, and if there are 10 family members on that trust, we're going to have the information on all 10 family members. Now, we're still just going to require the trust cert that we require to be completed for closing, that all, that is reviewed by underwriting, but that then will list everybody that's on the trust, and we will be required to have the information on each one of those individuals.
Kim, is this only on the buy side or is this on the sell side as well? So if the trust is selling it, does that also have to be disclosed as the seller or just the buyer?
So the buyer triggers it. It's a great question. So if the buyer triggers, then the seller has to disclose information that, seller information, which is a lot like the 1099 that they complete. So it's their name, their address, social security, or tax ID. So that will be required. But if it's a seller and the buyer is an individual, no, it doesn't trigger it. They don't have to report.
So just for the sake of being extremely clear, so me as a buyer, I'm an LLC. I'm going to trigger that, right? Let's say I'm buying the property from an estate. It's in a trust. That trust has 6 trustees on them, but really only one is primary trustee. Do all trustees, you just need the information for all the trustees. They don't have to sign anything. It's just like the names of the trustees themselves. Is that correct?
Correct. We'll have to have all of their information or names. They don't all have to sign, but we'll have to report them
Okay.
to FinCEN, their information. That
Okay.
was a good question. Good to see you, Casey.
Good to see you.
Alyssa, go for it.
So just to clarify, um, if we have an LLC and we're purchasing a ton of properties throughout the year in that same LLC, we have to pay every single time, but it'll be easier after the first time, assuming nothing has changed.
Correct. So each time the buyer will have to pay for fencing because each property will have to be reported. But your information we keep on hand.
Okay.
That will be in the platform. Now it won't be in the files, but it will be secured in that platform where we can use prior and that information, and then you will just certify off that that information is still correct and all the individuals are the same.
Okay, but then the homeowner, the seller has to fill something out every single time because every homeowner is different. And the goal is to stop like drug lords from essentially paying like homeowners that could be smuggling the money or stuff like that.
Yeah, so here's a quick example. I'm a drug lord and I see you on the street and I say, "Hey, I'm going to give you $50,000 so you can go to ABC Title Company and I need you to sign this in an LLC and I need you to buy this and then and then you go in there and you use your identification and you sign the documents, but you didn't really purchase the home. They did, and then they're going to use that to move their money. So that's just a quick example of what could be happening or doing, and they're trying to stop.
Okay. Yeah, it's super creative. I never thought of that. I'm not a drug lord, so it's tough for me to
Me
like
either.
conceptualize these things, but I was also wondering, so a lot of times with sellers, we will, whenever we get a contract signed, we'll also have them fill out a seller TRID form that we have from True Title just to get all the information while we're there at the property. Is this something that like we'll be able to add to that TRID form essentially and just get all the info we need while we're there?
It's something that I would because it has such personal information, such as social security numbers, such as their address, their name. And I'm not sure, too, when you're trying to do those deals, I appreciate the effort and I get where you're getting at because we want to get close. But I also think that could be very overwhelming and turn off. And you don't know at the time, especially if you're assigning it, if that's going to be required or not. And who your end buyer is. If you do know who your end buyer is, and you do know that it's going to trigger it, and it's an elderly person that like they're not going to be able to do this, that's where you'd reach out to closer us and say, hey, this is what's going on. Should I get the information? But we're still going to have someone else put that information in or call that company and have them do it so that it and certify off that it's accurate.
It
Okay,
sounds like,
thank
Kim,
you.
from a liability standpoint, wholesalers probably don't want to collect that
I would
information
agree.
because
Mhm.
then, heaven forbid, their security number gets stolen. You're, potentially at risk for being accused.
Yeah.
So I do understand why. I never thought of it that way.
Yep.
I have a question. So, what is the fees that we would have to pay each time that we would buy a property in that case?
So I do not have that for you today. It's still being determined. We want to make sure that we have the most affordable net. We're waiting for the platform that we're using to kind of give us the final of what the cost is going to be, so then we can look at what our charges are going to be. We have not seen what other title companies also will be charging. Really, nobody's kind of disclosed that. This ruling just has been pushed back a number of times, and it's been tried to Fidelity, one of our large underwriters, has been really fighting this and continues to fight it. There's still litigation going on there trying to stop, this and requiring title companies to have to report this. Because of that, the forms, the information required, and what the ruling was, we really just found all that out within the last month to 6 weeks. So trying to get all of this in place, get everybody informed, and know how the workflow is going to work and the cost is still really kind of down to the wire. So as soon as we know what our fees will be, I will share that with the Buyers Club so that everyone will know. But really knowing what we were going to be required, what it was going to entail, until we knew that, it was hard to determine the price.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I don't know. It just seems like this is another way. Like, I get it that they're trying to keep like the drug lords away, but I just more seem like this is another way where, hey, here's another way where we can also collect some tax money and ensure everything is right. So that's my little suspicion.
Yeah. It's definitely putting more regulation on things. So I do watch every day to see if anything's changed with the F&F case, and hoping that maybe something will be pushed back before March 1st. I think I don't think that's going to happen, but you never know.
Right, we'll
We'll
see.
keep our fingers crossed.
Oh yeah.
And I feel like that just answered Alyssa's question. And Alyssa, you're asking all the questions I keep thinking of. So keep asking them. Fabian and then Raman. Hopefully I said your name
Question.
right.
So, question for you. Do you believe that investors, to circumvent all of this, would look into actually keeping the properties in their own personal name rather than, Susan, you're saying no?
There's too much liability. I mean, it's like
Yeah,
1 to 5 minutes of paperwork. I feel like it's going to be a little bit of an incurred cost, but to me, it would be silly to put all your stuff in your personal name unless you're doing a 30-year fixed and you're doing it
right,
intentionally.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the paperwork actually looks like. I think that's the biggest piece right now, the unknown. Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
And it's
curious.
really just those few questions, the property address, the information, the individual information, address, TXA. So there's really not a lot. And when I say it takes 1 to 5 minutes, the 5 minutes is more because of someone that maybe has difficulty navigating or navigating the platform, but it's really just those few questions that they're going to be asking.
So,
And that's
so,
all you have to do. The submitting of it and the reporting, that's all on our end.
so my question was, it seems like we have all this data collection goes to FinCEN directly and then they get recorded. Is that by law that the title company has to do it, or an individual can go do this as well?
The title company is required to report it. We are part of the reporting cascade. So that means there are certain individuals in this ruling that are named that they have to report it. Um, as an agent, as an investor, you do not have to report this information. Am I answering your question correctly?
What I was trying to figure out is that if it is a matter of reporting what I am buying with what I am buying, then I can do the work which will cost me nothing. And if it is just a 5 minute thing, and for a title company, it's going to take 2.5 hours of work when it will take 5 minutes for me. So that's why I was asking that.
No, it's not like an individual can go and just report this. There's all the things that has to do with the recording of the document, where the money was transferred, showing how it is, and it's more complex than that, and it's looking at all of, if and then it's required. So we're not going to insure, no title company is going to insure and say, oh, yes, they're going to go report this and follow through and do what they want. We are held liable. So if we close the transaction and it triggers it, we are required to report it or used an approved platform for reporting it. We can't let someone report it or take it their word for it or do that. We would be held accountable.
Okay,
The
so
reporting team.
that's what I wanted to know, that it is it has to be done by the title company or the approved vendor to report this.
Correct.
Thank you. Yeah, makes sense.
Okay, and
Like,
I'm gonna turn on my video real quick. So when you saying trigger, it's not a guarantee that every time this may happen. It's just
Correct.
okay, yeah,
Correct.
yeah.
So it's only when and I'll go over those again with Erin because it's we've talked about so much and um
I know you were saying all the different things, but you keep saying trigger, like even though it may have all those things, it may not trigger that. So okay, that's what I was
there
confused
could be
about.
some things that are exempt, but yes,
Okay,
and if it is a finance loan, this isn't going to matter if it's an entity or a trust.
right,
So that's where we're looking at it. But one of the things that, on the investor side, this could come up, but with real estate agents, there's kind of a key thing here too, where it's like, okay, when you're looking at who's buying it, it's a big conversation. There's talking points to have with your buyer and say, this is going to be a requirement. Are you willing to do this?
right,
Before you get in that contract. Because if they're not, it's not going to close.
yeah,
And so that's a good, conversation. And then also to kind of just check out, hey, are the person that they're using, the credit union or non-finance loan, are they compliant with AML? If not, that doesn't mean we don't want the deal. It just means you're going to be required to do that. Now, about a few 6 months after this is required and gets in, everyone's going to know and it's going to be common and used to it.
yeah,
But in
yeah,
the beginning, it's going to be a challenge and it's always going to be a challenge for sellers because they're not going to unless they're a wholesaler that does this all the time, they're not going to understand why.
understand. Yeah, why you want all my
But
information?
but we have, some great resource tools that we are going to provide. We really on the title side, and it's not just for True Time, I'm talking about across. We're here to support this and to support you all in this and answer questions for your clients and for you all because we know how, what a change this is and how frustrating. And we don't, obviously, you don't want to lose deals over this, and we don't want to not be closing deals. So we're here to make sure that everyone's informed and that we get and if someone says, well, I think I'm exempt, or what about this? We're going to find an answer and we're going to do our best to figure out if they could be exempt or not.
And you are doing an awesome job. Thank you for being here. I love that you're a resource for us.
Yeah.
Okay, Merle, you're first, and then Alyssa, you're next.
Yeah, just a quick statement. I have the form here, and I don't see anybody being able to fill this out without the title company help where they've been trained. They have such stupid questions. Taxpayer identification number, 10 type, foreign identification, individual's date of birth, last name or organization name. Does the filer have, no, I'm just saying, I keep going around like, which 10 do you
So
want?
do you have
But
the
you know
eight
what?
page?
I don't,
Is that
hmm?
the 8 page form? Did you
Yeah.
pull that up? Okay, so this platform that we're doing has been completely condensed. When we saw that form, we panicked. I can tell you across the time, and we go, oh my God. And I mean, nobody's going to complete this. No one's going to take the time. Like, this is a nightmare. So what I can tell you is the link that will be sent out, and as soon as we're done onboarding, we'll send you and show you what it's like. All of those are going to be condensed. They're going to be able to pull that information in this platform by folks putting a little bit of their information in. It's going to backfill all of that. And from our order entry of the contract and the property information, it's going to backfill it. And if it's someone that we already have done business with, like the LLC or the trust that we can do, it's going to fill that in. It's going to pull it in. So yes, looking at that form is overwhelming and people are panic, but that is not what your buyers are going to see or sellers see when they go through the link.
So it'll be something, again, when they ask certain questions, I don't know what the hell they're referring to. So is it going to be more clarified where I could fill it out?
Yes, absolutely. And there's going to be someone right there that is a tech that it can chat with them, that you can immediately just say, what does this mean? Or they can pick up the phone and they can say, can you call me? They'll call and they'll walk them through it.
Okay.
And
See
these
why
are the experts that do this for FinCEN. So it's not even like they're going to be calling our processor or closer who, yes, we're training them doing that, but they're not the experts on this. The platform they're the experts on this.
Well,
And
I'm
they're going
125 years old. I'm going to need some help.
to, okay, well, understood. Yeah.
All right, Alyssa, what do you have?
I know some people are like trying to figure out ways to get around it, and you're saying, for agents to make sure to talk to their buyers that this would trigger it off. Is this something they would want to do? Otherwise, it's not going to close. My question is, why, like, if you're not doing anything wrong, then like, is it that big of a deal to give this information? I mean, they kind of already, I feel like the government already has your social, your birth date, everything like that. So as long as you're not like smuggling drugs, it's just a couple more papers, right?
Yes, I mean, in the big picture of things, what you're saying is right. If you're not doing anything wrong, what's the problem? But we all know that, there's information, there's a reason why people have LLCs and trusts set up for different, situations that are not because they're doing, smuggling drugs or have illegal behavior, and they, set those up for a reason. So, and having to give more information and having to give more of that about that is something that not everybody wants to do or willing to do. And it's frustrating because that's not what was intended when those were set up. So it is very individual, and there will be times where that comes up. If that's the thing, let's talk about it. Let's see if there's an exemption. Let's see if there's a way. It's one of those things. Are there going to be things that probably are workaroundable after this rolls out and gets and there's and things possibly, but for right now, it's not going to be workaroundable if these things trigger it. So I hope that answers your question.
And I have a question about private lenders and hard money lenders. So I assume, you're going to have to collect all of this information from all of us. We see quite a few people who maybe use us for purchase price and then have a private lender come in and cover rehab. Sometimes it flows through the settlement statement. Sometimes it's, kind of on the side with the private money lender for rehab funds only, not for purchase price. If Are private lenders who are lending rehab funds, are they subject to all of this as well?
And if we are not aware of it on our end, it's not on the out, it's not, then we don't want to know about it and don't talk about it at the closing table and
Okay.
that.
But if they're like, we have quite a few what I would call sophisticated private lenders who do have everything flow through the title
Mhm.
company. So then they would need to give
Yes,
all their information. Okay.
correct.
And then if people are using private lenders or hard money lenders, are there things that people like could be proactive with talking to their lenders to make sure they do or have so the lender isn't the holdup?
Yeah, and so one of the resources that we have is with our system is they can go immediately to this page and they can put in their bank, their lender that, and if they are registered and they are, it will come up. If they're not, then they'll know that they're not, and so then they'll know that they're going to have to get that information. We're going to have to get that from their whoever they're getting their money from.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have just a few minutes left. Anyone else have any questions? We have till 1 o'clock. Merle, do you still have a question or is your hand just stuck there?
Oh, no, I'm done. I'm good. Thank you. Great,
Okay.
great
Would you
presentation.
mind
Thank you
going
for
over
bringing
the,
it to us.
would you mind going over the triggers again?
Sure, absolutely. And I'm going to send a, it's this really handy, let me show you here. It is a flyer that is for real estate agents, investors, and this is a breakdown of what the FinCEN is, what information will be required, and there's some talking points down at the bottom, in addition to a QR code that connects you, links you to our reporting platform that anybody can go to, even if you don't close with us, we would love for you to, but even if you don't, but it's resources that I was talking about in this presentation. So I'll get that to everyone or to Suzanne, and you can send that out to everyone if you wouldn't mind. But let me
Mhm.
go back to your question just to of what, so sorry. So the property is located in the United States and it's considered residential real estate. So that is, I just want to be clear on that, that is a 1 to 4 family structure, existing or intended. Okay, so even if it's vacant land and you're buying and you're going to build on it, know that you're going to build on it, we have to report that. If we don't know that at closing and that's not something that's disclosed, we're not going to report it. But if you go a month after closing and start building on it, that's something that is you're taking a risk. Yeah, but if we don't know that, then we don't have to report it. But it does include condos, co-ops, and vacant land zoned as residential. So those are all the properties, residential properties that are included in this. If the transfer is non-financed, so meaning it does not involve a loan from a bank or a lender subject to anti-money laundering laws, so cash deals, basically. And the owner is a legal entity, such as a corporation, LLC, or trust.
And just to be super clear, when Kim says cash, she means hard money, private money, gifts from individuals, particular credit unions, anyone who is not already audited from a federal perspective.
And I do want to be clear that, the reason why they're having us do it, if they are going through a big bank that has it, they're having to give this information already. The bank, they are getting that's being collected from them and reported. That's why, we're not having to collect it on that end because it's already being done on the big bank side. So.
If I may ask a question, you specifically mentioned that it is for residential units, 1 to 4. You might not know this, just the question is, why not commercial properties?
It's a
That's a
good
bigger,
question.
that's a bigger transaction.
That's a good question, and we've asked that, and we have not been given any a clear answer on that from the ruling. But commercial is not Now, if it's a multi-use, so part residential, part commercial, so bakeries on the bottom floor and we're living upstairs,
Uh-huh.
that does qualify, but just commercially zoned does not.
Interesting.
So if I was a drug kingpin, I'd be focusing on large multifamily at this
Yeah,
point.
pretty
Okay,
much.
Yeah.
awesome. Cool.
I was
Yes.
thinking the same thing too.
They're
My
doing
guess
much
is
bigger
it's because it
deals.
needs more money. It's probably harder, right? It's
Right.
easier to move single family properties than it is commercial properties, and
Oh,
less of a cost burden would be my assumption. There's probably, if they've already been doing this in other states, they've probably seen that's where
Mhm.
it's
well,
more
then you
likely
can
to
buy
occur.
5 unit property.
Yeah.
There are not
Instead
many
of
of those
four.
out there.
Just kidding.
All right,
Speaking
Kim.
of, oh, I just wanted to ask this. So, like,
Yeah.
yeah, onto Ramen, if I pronounce that right, is point of commercial property. So I'm guessing since the deal is much bigger, then maybe it's not really an issue until they try to make some kind of guideline for it? Or is it because that since multifamilies are easier to get into, obviously we could say the same with singles, then maybe this is why this whole thing is coming in? I don't know. I'm just taking a guess.
I said, I think happening is if you look at the property buying, single family properties, foreign investors are buying quite a bit of these single family properties in the United States.
Right.
And that is, I think they're trying to stop that. Canada has done that because Chinese investors were buying properties in Canada and they completely stopped for foreign investors buying property. And in US, we have a serious problem regarding this. I believe this is what's triggering this, which is very good.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. I do agree with that. I just was trying to see two sides of why now this thing comes out, even though apparently it's been years. But okay, yeah, I could see that making sense. Yeah.
Yeah, and my number may be off a little bit, but something about in this targeted when they were looking at it, it was saying, the billion, like $2.7 billion in this in that area, 44% of it is that suspicious activity. So if that tells you anything,
Yep.
there is some concern there and there is some, safety. So as much as it's frustrating on the ends of us as having to report and having to give that information for your LLC when you're not doing in part of this activity, but it's definitely a concern and a security concern, and it's been, you know, determined that it is. So,
Like property values in California has significantly gone up. It's not because people in California has a lot of money. It's because the investors, homes are just sitting there idle, nobody lives in them for years. And these are all foreign investors. And they just buy it at asking price or higher price. That's why the price just skyrocketed here. And nothing, we cannot do anything about it.
Yeah, that makes sense. I could also say the same for New York City as well, too. It's expensive as that place is.
yeah.
So I want to respect everyone's time, and we are at 1 o'clock. So we are going to wrap up. But Kim, seriously, thank you so much for doing this. You've been super, super helpful. I feel like you've given everyone a lot more clarity. To me, this feels very similar to when all the TRID changes occurred, and it was like annoying for the first few months, and then as we all adapted to it, it was not a big deal. So I feel like it's going to be more of an annoyance for a little bit, and then it won't be anything we think about. So thank you again. I know several people commented that they joined a little late or missed part of this. This is all on our Facebook page. If you go to Buyers Club Community of Real Estate Investors, you'll be able to see this reported there. We'll also be, sharing the pieces of this on our Buyers Club page as well as our Faster Funds Lending page. And so anything we can do to help you guys with this and that True Title can do, don't hesitate to reach out. But thank you guys for all your time, and I hope you guys have a great Wednesday. And Kim, thank you again.
Thank you for letting me join. You
Thanks,
guys have a
Kim.
great one. Talk with you all soon. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.